Welcome back. How we doing? We're still all right? How was Miss Debbie Allen? Lovely, lovely treat. Well, I'm glad you guys are all still here hanging out because we have an incredible panel lined up for you tonight. I will introduce them one by one. So, without further ado, our first guest is an American ballerina who has studied classical, ballet, contemporary with many of the country's biggest companies. She has performed over 300 times with the Broadway show Moving Out, founded the American Ballet Foundation, and is the artistic director for Joffrey West. Please welcome Miss ALYSE. Come on in, yes. How are ya?
I'm good.
Good, welcome. All right, our next guest is a heavy hitter in the business. He is a 4-time award-winning choreographer for his work with Stomp the Yard, the NAACP Image Awards, Chris Brown's Grammy Awards, and Bright House Network's commercial. With a strong background in step, this guy has tackled film, TV, live stage shows, and is an international master teacher. Give it up for Chuck Maldonado. Styling over here. All right. Our next guest is one of the most sought-after choreographer directors in the business. A few of his credits include Cirque's Michael Jackson The Immortal World Tour, Dancing with the Stars, the Step Up movies, So You Think You Can Dance, J-Lo, Milo, Usher, and the list goes on. He's soon to be releasing the 5th installment of the Step Up series and a new documentary entitled Live. Give it up for Jamal Sims. Hey! Welcome, welcome. Hey. Like that energy. Born and raised in Los Angeles, our next guest was mentored by Kenny Ortega since the age of 15. Now a veteran choreographer, director of 30 years, she is still sought after by today's top TV shows and world-renowned artists like Jennifer Lopez, Madonna, Dancing with the Stars, American Idol, the American Music Awards, just to name a few. Now she is taking her life experiences and translating them into a motivational program for young dancers called Breaking Barriers. Please welcome Liz IMPERIO. Hi, hi, hi. All right. Born and trained in Seattle, Washington, studio owner in Los Angeles, and the pioneer of the dance agency business, our next guest has worked for almost 30 years representing dancers and choreographers like you and me. She created the American Choreography Awards and the Choreography Media Honors, and recently received the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Choreographers Carnival. Please help me welcome Miss Julie McDonald. Right. Also working on films like Step Up, This Is It, From Justin to Kelly, Geely. Our next guest has had a role in creating a lot of the dance scenes you've seen on the big screen and TV. You might recognize him from the LXD, Step Up 2, or Hairspray. Please welcome Draco Johnson. Hey. All right. And our final guest of the evening is an industry insider who began dancing at the age of 12 with the likes of Patti LaBelle, Celine Dion, and Sheila E. He's worked alongside greats like Marguerite Derricks, Wade Robinson, and Kenny Ortega as well. Starred and choreographed in all the High School Musicals and has had the privilege to work with Michael Jackson. Please welcome CHUCKY KLAPOW. All right, one more round of applause for our panel this evening. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate you guys all giving your time. You're all extremely busy people. You have a lot going on in your careers. It's great. I'm like listing all these things. I can't believe I'm sitting here with all of you. So thank you. We've got a lot of great questions. I'll kind of toss them to who I think might be a good person to answer. Feel free to chime in, raise your hand, hoot, holler, hey, all that, hey, if you want. All right, so we'll jump right into it. With the landscape of dance today, just kind of getting into it, with new challenges and opportunities that exist today as opposed to in the past. I want to actually throw that to you, Julie. Ah, she knew it was going to her. Not me first. You know the business.
I think I have a loud enough voice where I don't need this, or can you? Okay.
Yeah.
I was really hoping I wouldn't be first because it's really a big question.
It's a big question.
And I'll just try to be really as concise as possible for what's going on now as opposed to what's going on, what went on the past 5 years, 10 years. I mean, things have changed so rapidly in the past few years that it's like lightning. Well, obviously, the most obvious change is what's going on in social media and the internet and YouTube. It's just the influence is enormous. It's no longer anything that's sidelined. It's part of the mainstream, and dancers and choreographers, they have to have a presence there. You don't have to have a presence, and there's some really big heavy hitters that never go on social media, but for the most part, if you're young and you're just starting out, or if you're at a place where you're stuck and you want to reinvent yourself, or, you know, it's something that you have to learn how to do, and learn how to do it masterfully. It's just so important. So that's the main change. In terms of the business in general, I think, sad to say, that so much production has left Los Angeles because of the, are you all familiar with the tax credit situation? To me, this is like this is bordering on tragic. Not every other state, maybe there's 10 other states in the Union, plus Canada, plus other countries that offer enormous incentives for filming and production overseas or in other states, primarily New York, Louisiana, Atlanta, Canada, and California, which birthed the industry, has a minor tax credit, whereas New York gives $400 million a year in tax credits to come shoot in New York. California allocates $100 million a year, and it's done on a lottery system. So the biggest, I think, for us, where I see the biggest decline is in film and television production in California, and that's affected our business greatly. I mean, so there is a bill going through the up to the governor's office. It's already passed the Senate. It's Bill 1839, and it's on Governor Brown's desk, and it's going to be signed. Hopefully, he'll sign with granting a lot more tax credits for keeping production in California, because it's really hurt our economy. It's hurt people, families. It's a middle-class issue. And I think that there's a big misconception in Sacramento that this is all about movie stars and the people who make a lot of money, but it's really about, you know, the grips and the electricians and the caterers and the stylists and people who really are trying to make a living here. So for me, I see that this has really been a sad decline. And if you're so inclined, you can write to the governor urging him to pass Bill 1839. It's very easy. You can just go online and find it. And hopefully the more voices that write that letter, the better. So that's just my assessment. Because of that, we've had to be very, very, very inventive, and we do a lot of business overseas now. We've got a lot of business in Asia, and and most of our business is in live entertainment. When I first started, it was almost all in filmed entertainment, taped entertainment. Now I think 75% of our business is live. Yeah. So that's the state of things as I see
That's
it.
a good place to start. That's a big issue.
But I think other people should chime in, because I'd really like to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I definitely agree. I know that one of the hard parts is, you know, for me, I know we just did Step Up 5,000 or 5, yeah, 5. And we had to go to Vancouver, and there were dancers that, you know, I wanted to already book from LA that I knew that have been waiting for the opportunity, and because we're shooting in another country, you know, I couldn't give them that opportunity, and I had to go to Canada and get dancers that, you know, have never worked on a Step Up before, you know, and in the talent pool, not saying that it's bad in Vancouver, it's just different in LA, because LA is where the dancers come to study and to get the training. And so in Vancouver, although they were good, I just knew that the people that I've worked with here were going to be able to pull off the job, you know, and I felt comfortable with that, especially in the time that we had to film. So that was just, you know, a thing for me. I was just like, wow, I have to go to this new place where I don't know anybody, and I have to find dancers that, you know, I love that I'm able to give them opportunities, but I would love to be able to give the opportunities back home where people, you know, have been faithful to me, and I could bring them along with me on the job. But so that was one of the challenges for me, is like, you know, it's just kind of horrible to think that we have to take the work away from you guys here in LA.
Yeah. I just wanted to chime in on that because I just did well, about a year and a half ago, I did a film in South Africa, in Cape Town. We did a movie called House Party. You guys probably know the 1990 House Party, but it was the fifth edition of it. And in House Party, I had to hire 19 dancers, and of course they wouldn't allow me to hire anybody from Los Angeles or from the United States at all. And when I found out how much they were getting paid, I saw why they didn't do it. They were getting paid $50 American a week. And these dancers were literally on set. First of all, rehearsals were 8 to 10 hours a day, and they were on set 14 to 18 hours a day to do this movie. And it was sad. It was so sad. It was so bad that one of the dancers came to me crying, like, you know, my mom is about to lose her house. And I just helped him out and gave him some money because I felt that bad about it. But I had 19 dancers making $50 American a week for 2 months.
I think it's really interesting, too, at a time when dance is bigger than it's ever been in pop culture, on television. There's more dance on television than you've ever seen before. And across the country, there's more kids in dance conventions growing up wanting to be a dancer because they see it on TV, they see the possibilities, and they learn that they're going to grow up and move to LA to do this as, you know, for a living. Then they come out here, and every year there's more and more and more and more dancers showing up on the scene. It's a whole different world, and it's like exponentially growing. And then all of a sudden, all these jobs are not happening for them, and they're in the wrong place, and it just doesn't seem right at all.
So I know dancers can work as locals in some of these, like they'll ask you to move.
High School Musical was that way. With the third High School Musical, we did all three in Utah and Salt Lake City, and it was on the third movie we were finally given that budget to hire a third of our cast, a third of our principal dancers could come from anywhere else, but 2/3 still had to come from Salt Lake City. So there are ways around it, depending on how they work with you, but that was a big budget since it was the third one.
Right.
You can't really work local unless you establish residency in the state. You can stay with, it's complicated. You have, and you will go against a lot of union rules if you do that because you have to fly yourself there. That's against the union rules. So there are ways around things, but it ain't kosher. So what's happening is in a way, and I don't really mean to disparage anything else, but there's nothing like the talent pool that's here. So the qualities, you have to really get around, you know, style and quality, and you have to make a lot of adjustments. I mean, of course, you do it, and I bet you won't see it on screen, the difference, but it's really challenging when you don't have the talent pool to work with. So
have there been solutions thrown around to this?
You bring production back to California.
Go sign the bill, please. Go sign the bill. Yeah, absolutely. No, we can move on. I think we've covered that a little bit. So you talked a little bit about social media and what a big role that's playing now. So let's kind of dive into that as an entire subject because people are gaining a lot of opportunities. I know you recently hired somebody, I think, straight off of YouTube.
I've hired a couple people. Oh, hello.
There it is.
Hi, I'm back. I've hired a couple people off of YouTube, and but I think it's good and bad. I think that we have the YouTube and we have the accessibility of social media, and there is a fast track that people and dancers and choreographers that get from that media outlet. But the other problem is that there's an experience thing that happens when they come to the set, and they're like, okay, now you have to do this 20 times, and exactly, you know, and there's experience, and they kind of come to the set with like a bit of entitlement, like I'm such and such, I have 20 million followers on Twitter and da, 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 da. I'm like, I don't care. Can you, let's get this job done. Can you do the job? And usually they can't because they don't know what it takes to do the hard work or go through the rehearsal. They just haven't had that experience. And even with choreographers, they get to the set and the director, they have this whole piece choreographed in their head, and then they're like, oh yeah, we're not doing it over here. We're doing it in the gas station. And they're like, but it's, no, it's gonna happen at a gas station tomorrow, And so those are the things that I know that, can be a setback, for hiring people directly off of social media, and just with those big presence that they have, that I feel like they really do need the experience, and they should try to reach out to other choreographers and try to come up under them and study and shadow them and ask for help. Ask for their guidance in something like that, just to get the experience. And it's nothing to, shade them or anything else. It's just for experience, because I know that's what I did. And, I think that's usually the best way to get the experiences, unless you're a great dancer and you get a lot of experience on the set as well.
So your advice is to sort of reach out to a choreographer and submit that way and say, hey, can I shadow you?
Yeah, I think you could do the social media. I think that's great, to show your work, but I also think that you really do need to get the experience in another way, from other people,
Yeah, like working.
Yeah.
Yeah, like going to auditions, like training under these choreographers, like doing the work and preparing yourself for the opportunity, like we did, back
I think that's
10 years or more. Go ahead.
I think that's what they lack. I think that they lack the, like he just said, they haven't really did much, but they're amazing teachers of their style, but they also become one-dimensional because you don't know how to get on set and adjust to what's happening at the moment. You're on set, things move fast-paced, and when you're teaching your things on social media is you do what you want to do when you want to do it, but you get on set and it's not going to go when you want it to go and when you want it to happen. So they don't really know how to adjust to that, and that's the problem that we had on the last Step Up. We hired someone that, was used to things moving their way, and you get on a set where it's not going to go your way sometimes. So those things, the experience that you can get, like going to these auditions and working with people that you've looked up to all these years, they should take that experience and then add it to what they want to do on their social media, or when they can adjust, when they come to LA and they do get a job, that they can hire people,
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
I'm actually going to chime into this world, and it's going to transition the question a little bit. But part of the description of what's going on is the basic of training and the ability to be able to bring diversity to a dancer's portfolio. You don't know as a dancer what it is that a choreographer or a producer is looking for until you walk in through the door. So your job at that point is to become as adaptable and as knowledgeable as you possibly can. And now this is where I believe social media is a benefit, because the accessibility of being able to watch anything from the history of dance to the culture of dance, no matter what part of the world it's from. And it's amazing to me where dancers, young dancers, I'm going to say specifically young dancers' focus is at this point. And because social media dictates such a presence of the intention or the idea of fame, it's removing them from the ability to be able to dive into the work that they should be installing right from the top. So that way, when they walk into the audition, they are fully prepared. They become the dancer that a choreographer can trust.
Yes, there it is.
I guess I'll chime in here.
Yes, please.
Just on the training, because I'm more of the training aspect of training new dancers coming up and seeing them go professional and making sure that they're ready. And a lot of the dancers that I work with, I don't think they're understanding as they're watching television that they're like, oh, I want to do that, but they don't understand how to get there. And they don't understand that their base of dance, if they're going to be in a modern company, they need to take modern technique. If they want to be in a ballet company, they need to be taking ballet classes. But that ballet translates, being a ballerina, I have had the background in ballet, and however, I've taken other courses as well. That's why when I train the dancers, I give them the opportunity to do everything. And that includes different cultural dances. So we're going from ballet technique to modern technique to other techniques such as hip hop and flamenco and traditional Chinese dancing and African. A lot of the dancers today don't understand the upper body movement. They don't know how to move the upper body. And that's something that African dance can give you. They're like, I don't understand why I'm taking African. Well, you will understand once we start the class and you understand how you're not even moving your back. So, which then that will translate into you going into other forms of dance. And moving your head. A lot of the dancers today don't move their heads. They keep their head in one location. You know, and so I'm like, your head has so many ranges of movement. So then they get on set, and then they're like, where's the camera? My head's not moving. And then that's when the frustration comes in. So I try from the root to get them to understand that they need all forms of dance, they need to study all forms, and that ballet is highly necessary to also understand the discipline. And they almost feel like, oh, but I just want to get up and dance and do that on stage, but they don't understand that those people had ballet training.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. I just noticed that social media, media in general, and worldwide reaching media has changed the dance business the way it affected the music business decades ago. With music, there was a time where if you wanted to become famous and you wanted to be an artist, you had to be your own artist. I mean, there was really only one Tina Turner voice. There was only one Bruce Springsteen. Like, every vocalist back then had their own sound. And then TV came along, and all of a sudden it's about who's the next this and who's the next that. And everyone started, it became a visual thing, and then you're looking for the next Britney Spears, not who's the next, you know, their own thing. And with dance, it's becoming the same thing. I've noticed a lot of people are just trying to do the next Marty Kudelka instead of being their own thing. And with social media, that's just spreading like wildfire. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, dance is so, it's everywhere. And everyone's, you know, getting the opportunity to do this, and it's great, and there's nothing wrong with being self-taught. But there's just something to be said about, you know, what are you about, and what separates, you know, what separates everything, and whereas it's kind of similar.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my question is, like, you guys as industry leaders, like, how do we communicate that to the masses, that the training is so important and that you need to carve out your own lane, because all they're seeing is the social media and the television shows and trying to get there the quickest way possible.
Here's something really interesting that I just heard, that the kids now on So You Think You Can Dance, the contestants, they've been watching the show since they were like 6 or 7 years old,
Yeah.
and their entire goal has been to be
Yes.
on the show. And this just, it was unbelievable to hear. So if you look at them, they're pretty masterful technicians, a lot of them, but there's not a whole lot else there because they're very young, number one, so they don't have life experience yet to be connected to their emotions, or so that's not their fault necessarily, but they have been training to be on that show. Isn't that interesting?
That's their one goal.
And then the other thing I was going to say about social media, you know, we represent some big social media stars. They could care less about being in mainstream. They're making money on being these huge YouTube stars. They don't, you know, we bring them in to talk to them, do you want to do this? They don't even know what we're talking about. They don't, some of them don't really care about doing traditional media. Have you found that?
No, I agree. It's two separate worlds. They actually call themselves the community. And that's their own community, and that's what they do. And they go all over the world, and all over the United States, and they teach. That's what they do. And they can care less about being in the next big movie or the next big whatever, because in their world, they're a star. And because they are a star, respected as a star, they prefer that than to be a background dancer for an artist or someone else. And I think that's where they're coming from. And like you said, Julie, they make a lot of money. And these kids literally, because I do workshop with some of them, when you walk into the room with them, they don't even know who I am, but they know who they are, and they're like screaming and yelling and taking pictures with them. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, yeah, it's unbelievable.
And can I speak to the, so you think you could,
Oh, no, 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 you go right ahead.
well, no, I just want to say that there's been a couple of experiences where some of the, finalists for So You Think You Could Dance, and I feel sad because I see them get all of this notoriety off the show, and they walk into an audition in LA, in one of our auditions with all the kids that have been at all of these other, auditions after auditions, and they get in there, and then they realize, I'm not as great as I thought I was on the show. Well, they're just this on the show, but the show doesn't tell them, there's a big dance world that has a lot of great dancers that you're going to be up against. And now you're not only up against just the dance, you're up against the look, and you're up against the, the experience and all this kind of stuff. And so I've seen so many of them get off the show and think that they're going to have big careers and have to go back home. You know what I mean? And so it just doesn't prepare them in that kind of a way. And so sometimes it's a little bit, it's kind of heartbreaking sometimes to watch those kids come into auditions and audition after audition and not book after the show. So, I just want them to be careful. I wish there was a way to warn them. You know what I mean? Like, this is good for now, but it's different when you go into the real working world.
And I'm just going to jump on this as well, because I think this is such an important topic in this day and age of dance. Because if we look back 15 years ago, none of this existed. There was no such thing as YouTube stars. There was no such thing as reality TV dance stars. And it's a dual-edged sword. The beauty of it is that it's brought dance to the mainstream in such a way that this particular time in society, you cannot escape dance. You can't escape it from TV shows, you can't escape it from commercials, you can't escape it from films. It's everywhere. That's the plus side. On the minus side, I teach on conventions every single week. I've been teaching on conventions for more than 25 years, mainly because I like staying tapped into the next generation of dancers that are gonna make it out here. So if I can get my hands on them early and just help them kind of twist their minds a little bit, because youth is influential. They're highly influenced. And so this is where there is a sense of responsibility that needs to be applied, whether it be from teachers, master teachers, convention teachers, even these kids from So You Think You Can Dance. Now, as Julie said, it's remarkable to see these kids grow up in such a generation that their only goal is to just be on the show. And no one is helping these kids understand, look, this is not the beginning, nor is it the end. There is such a pipeline to everything in regards to dance. It's great that you have an aspiration or an idea or a goal, but know that there's always more out there. It's like for my generation, it's like, if I wanted to be a solid gold dancer, if I didn't become a solid gold dancer, that was it. My life would end, and until people were willing to talk to me and help me understand, look, there are ways of being able to go on a tour, to be able to do film, TV work, company work, be able to go on, even to be able to cruise around the world, in all fairness. You can literally jump on a ship, travel the world for a year's time, save up some money, come to LA. There's so many places that dance exists, that it's not just the one niche. And right now it's helping expand the mind, and more importantly, bring a little bit more knowledge to these kids, because if not, then the hunger for what it is that they want to become is not there, which is why so many dancers pop in and why so many dancers pop out. It's all about longevity.
Absolutely.
It's about longevity, but now most of these kids that just want to win. It's all about the competition and the winning. And that's different. I'm old, but that was not even in we didn't even think that way as dancers. Do you remember?
It wasn't in our backdrop. It just wasn't, it wasn't around. And the shameful side of it is that these kids are missing out on the opportunity of what dance is, which is still an art form, and it's still a space to express.
And
I don't think it's about, I think they're noticing, though, as each season of So You Think happens, that the people that don't win are working. It's not about winning a show like that. Everybody that's on that show comes off the show. I mean, you see it in American Idol. You don't have to win the show. You'll get work. I mean, everyone's got the talent. You don't need the show. You have the talent already. So, you know, it's not about winning all the time.
And I also think it's about education. That a lot of the students today aren't educated like we were in the past. We were handing down more information. We were handing down, you know, Ballet Russe information. We were handing down information from our instructors. And I don't think that's really happening. I think they're not understanding how important it is to understand where we came from. A lot of students, I said, do you know who Jose Limon is? Do you know who Bella Lewitsky is? Do you know who these people are? And they have no idea. They have no idea who started modern, which modern led into contemporary. They don't know where their base is. And they just think that if they do these tricks, they're going to be dancers. And they'll say, but you know, your class was so easy, and that's because you didn't do it right. You didn't do fouettes, Miss Alice. Yeah, I didn't do fouettes because you're not going to do them right. You first need to know how to learn to do passe.
So I think that this is a great conversation, and obviously all of you guys have a wealth of knowledge to share. So if somebody can get in your class, they're going to get a lot of information that we're talking about. But like we were also saying, So You Think You Can Dance stars at 18 are off the show, and because of their popularity, studios are like, let's get them in because all the kids will want it. But what do they have to offer as a mentor or a teacher?
You know, I'll be honest, I think a lot of them do have a great creative resource. I mean, they come up with their own with their solos. But, you know, I think it's just the popularity of what the show has to provide. A lot of times it's just a way to keep a certain appeasement of morality in a studio, because a lot of these kids, because they're so young, they have not had enough life experience. They have not auditioned, they have not been on the job to be able to understand what it is. They haven't assisted a choreographer. I mean, part of being a teacher is being able to pass down experience. And you can't say, well, I've done three months on this show, I have all the experience in the world, you know, and it's something that you do have to groom, but when these kids look so good doing their own work, that's literally where, that's kind of what it is. It's like, they look so good, but they don't turn around to see how the other dancers are doing. Meanwhile, the other dancers are looking at them like, wow, you look amazing. And then when they have to, they're like, I don't look anything like this guy. I don't look anything like them. But there's no support. There's no, let me help you understand how to get this work. And so it is a big crutch. And I'm not going to say they're all like that, because there are some teachers out there that are actually really good at teaching that have come off. Like Caitlin Kenny, who's actually really fantastic on the convention circuit as a ballet teacher. There's several of them that have definitely grown, but it's just a really weird balance.
Is there some sort of responsibility you guys feel to mentor those people? And
I do. I feel, I think we all should feel a certain level of responsibility, hence the reason why I still today teach. And I teach at Debbie Reynolds. And I teach just once a week for 1 hour, but I do it not because I need the extra $50, but because of the fact that I want to be able to bridge that gap and be able to touch these young dancers that do come into LA, get to know them, get to help them, and get to educate them. I feel a certain level of responsibility to educate these dancers. Hence the reason also why I do, you know, Monsters of Hip Hop or The Pulse or whatever. If they ask me to, I'm doing it, because that's my time to touch that child and educate them.
That's great.
And I felt the same way when I came out here to Los Angeles and I started Joffrey West. I thought to myself, I really wanted a safe place where they can learn all different forms of dance. They can learn hip hop, they can learn traditional Chinese dancing. And a lot of them say, Miss Alice, this is a contemporary program. I don't understand why I have to learn, I have to take point class. And I said, well, say you got a Broadway show and they're looking for the one person who can dance on point. Well, you just lost out on a principal role. You need to take everything. You need to be a well-rounded dancer. In today's day and age, it has changed. When I was younger, it was you were a bunhead, or you were in a modern company, or you were breakdancing on the sidewalk. And there wasn't anything in between. And everybody was kind of cast as such. Now it's different. Now every genre has almost seeped into the other. And for you to have a long career as a dancer, you have to know every form of dance.
It is, like what you just said, is that hurting the industry where all these styles are being fused into different things and there's no differentiation between styles?
I think that comes down to still the base of education. Dance still is a space of evolution. It still has to keep evolving and growing because our audiences are becoming a lot more sophisticated as well. They're now becoming very accustomed to a certain level of spectacle and athleticism that is now attached to the grace and the self-expression and everything that comes along with the whole package. And so as choreographers, we do need to be able to have the freedom of being able to overlap certain things. But with that said, a dancer should know the base of what pure jazz is. They should know what the aspect of what pure ballet is, because even in ballet there's multiple layers, whether it's royal, whether it's CHUCKY, and you look into the world of jazz, if you go to the godfathers of jazz, whether it's Giordano, Luigi, Jack Cole, you know, if you're going to work into the world of flamenco, if you're going to look in the world of hip-hop, where you're looking back at Mr. Wiggles, Pop and Taco, when you're looking at Tony Basil, there's so many people that were the front runners of each and every genre that you should know, because you don't know when Jamal's going to go, you know what, I want to do a flamenco hip-hop. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. You don't know. I get 10% of that, by the way. Okay. Just saying. Either that or I'll assist you. Okay. We'll make it a team effort. I have a fabulous flamenco dress for you. Okay. You know, but you know, it is important to understand, you know, and the other thing is that we also have to think about the backdrop of where life is. When we were younger, there was no distraction. That we had basic distraction. We had school, we had boys, we had girls, we had family, and it was very simple. Our phones were still corded. You still went to the TV set and turned the knob. You know, now the amount of white noise that exists every single second to a child, because they're always looking either on, I mean, it takes, they'll soak up an hour just on Twitter, another hour on Facebook, another hour on Instagram, another hour on Tumblr, whatever the social media is, and then they'll loop back. So then by the time they get into the class, there's so much going on in their head that they need to be more stimulated, and there's no place for them to literally completely clear themselves out, which is why sometimes I believe even in the world ballet is challenged, because it is a slow-paced art form, because it is meant to be a journey of the discovery of the body. It's meant to understand how to develop itself over time. A child at the age of 9 should not be doing fouette turns because they don't know how to chaîner. You know, they should, because if not, then I always challenge a parent, you know, you want your child to do fouettes at the age of 9, then I recommend that you take your child and put them into a senior year in high school for a month, and you tell me how they survive. One is the same as the other. The world of education grows with you. It doesn't just jump at you.
Yeah.
I actually got a card from a student the other day that said, "Thank you, Miss Alice, for teaching me how to do a correct passe." She actually said, no one's ever broken it down like that. And it was happy to me, at the same time sad, that I just would like more education just all over the country and the world for that matter. I think that as much as I know all of us up here give, it's just so important to pass the word to the next generation of how important it is really to educate themselves and not be afraid of it.
I think that it even needs to go to the middle person who is the teacher at these small dance studios,
Yes.
right? Educating them who are teaching the kids.
And that's the thing, that when you go to these smaller studios, they go off what the kids think is hot right now. So they go to YouTube and bring in the YouTube or the social media kids who never did anything, who can't teach those techniques. And that's the problem.
So
That's
there's
where
the disconnect.
That's the disconnect. They don't really go and find the person that can actually teach you the basics and the beginning and all these techniques. They go straight to YouTube or social media and get whoever's hot right there, who have no idea of none of the techniques that no one's ever discussed.
And that's why I go.
But they know their style. But they know their style. You know what I mean?
And that's so true. I agree. That's why everywhere I go, I always ask them, do you know so-and-so? Do you know so-and-so?
Right.
They don't know who anybody is, but they know who those social kids are.
Of course.
Oh, they know them
Of course.
kids.
And in all fairness, I think there needs to be a big of a, everybody's talking obviously about the bridge of gap that's happening. You know, when we talk about the world of even commercial dance, let's just even break it down to that. The last thing that had any sense of real archival, mainstream availability was that's entertainment. That's dancing. And they did speak a little bit about Jack Cole. They did speak a lot about Jerome Robbins, Fred Astaire, Sid Charisse. I mean, when somebody says, you know, do you know who Sid Charisse is? And they're looking at you going, who's he?
Oh.
You're like, oh, well, have you heard of Gene Kelly? Who's she? You know, you start scratching your head, and dance has evolved so much, and we're missing out as well on teaching these kids as well the next generation of masters that changed the game. When you're talking about someone like Michael Peters, who changed the game of music videos, when music videos were just on the cusp of coming out. Love is a Battlefield. You know, when you're talking about Thriller, you're talking about, you know, Beat It. You know, these dancers came in. Billy Goodson will never, you know, he'll tell me the tale of they auditioned and they learned the choreography and they shot that night. You know, and who would have guessed at that moment how much dance changed? And whether it's the Lester Wilsons, whether it's, you know, and then the mentors that came beneath them. Like there's a huge, massive gap, you know, where people only know a very small sliver. And even that gap, there's no archive to it. There's no one actually, no one has taken the time yet. If they have, it needs to come out fast. But there's no archival. I mean, you'd be amazed at how many kids don't know what started Kenny Ortega's career. Or what, you know, how did Debbie Allen become Debbie Allen? You know, it's just something that needs to be brought forward a little bit more.
Well, you know, Larry Billman has this amazing book on, it's a history of every film that's ever been made in the history of Hollywood and every choreographer who's done it. So it is this extraordinary reference book, but it's a book. Now, you know, this is not a new thing, Liz, about kids not knowing, because when I first became an agent, about 30 years ago, but about 27 years ago, there was an audition at the church on Franklin, and it was for Jerome Robbins' Broadway. Remember that show? And so there was no computer. We didn't have computers. Every person was called, right, Audrey, remember? Audrey was one of my very first clients. I'm so happy to see you. And we'd pick up the phone and tell people, there's this major audition happening for this major Broadway show, and Jerry Mitchell is going to give the audition. Who's that? Who's Jerome Robbins? Now, that was 27 years ago. So what my point is that things have not changed that much in terms of young generations not knowing their history. So how do you correct that? This is a big, huge conversation.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't really want to delve into this too deeply, but if you go to the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, or if you go to the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, these organizations have huge archives where everybody is archived, and you can go there, you can learn. Dance is a very unorganized, unstructured group of people, and choreographers don't have a union, and there's all sorts of problems that stem from the fact that there is not a central group of people to pass on information. So how has it been done decade after decade? You pass it on. Who was your mentor?
Right. Oh, Michael Peters.
Michael Peters, who was his mentor. It was like someone like Tally Beatty in New York, or Donnie McHale, people like that. Who were their mentors? It goes on and on and on. But there is no written history, not really. So the way dance has always been passed on is mentor to student. Assistant choreographers. How do they become choreographers? They assist a major choreographer. That's how they do it, right, Tina? I mean, how did you do it?
I started assisting Walter Painter. Actually.
Right. She started assisting Walter Painter, and then she became this major choreographer. But she learned. She learned. And now, and at that, so nothing has really changed. The only thing left, that needs to be done is there does need to be a central place where the history is really documented and where it's almost a requirement for students to learn.
It should
like
be.
a class.
Yeah.
How
So
fun
Debbie-
would that be?
It's
Just start a
what-
dance, start
what-
a film festival of all dance films, and then have
Yeah.
and have the people who are left educate and explain
There needs to be.
everything,
Yeah.
So, anyway.
But I think even today, a lot of the students don't know who their employers are going to be. They don't know where, I mean, just even in the ballet world, I'm teaching a ballet intensive with Joffrey, and I say, who's the director of the San Francisco Ballet? They don't know. They don't know. Who is this choreographer?
Did you know all that stuff when you were
Oh,
young?
yeah.
Oh.
Are you kidding? Well, before I went to Joffrey, the school, I knew who Robert Joffrey was. I knew who Jerry Arpino was. When they walked into the room, I was like, oh my God.
If there was an audition for Marguerite Derricks the next week, you knew how to dress because you knew what you were walking into. Because you just took everybody's classes. You knew how everybody worked. You knew how to be. You knew that if you went to audition for Kenny, it's not necessarily about the steps, it's about the character, so you're going to bring character to this audition. And, how you dress, how you present yourself, people don't necessarily know that these days. And I don't know if it's because working choreographers don't teach as much as they do regularly.
That's it.
Because, there are working choreographers don't teach regular classes. So the kids that are dancing for them or auditioning for them don't really know what to expect when they walk into an audition or on the job.
So I just want to finish the story about Jerome Robbins, this audition. So we would call people and say, you have this audition for Jerome Robbins Broadway. They'd say, who, Jerome Robbins? We would say to them, you go to the library. If you don't know who he is, you don't get to go to the audition. So we were so flipped out that kids did not know who Jerome Robbins was. It was such an eye-opener because I went, oh my God, how can you not know who Jerome Robbins is? Okay, there's other more obscure people, okay, but not him. Do you know? So it was really shocking, but I think that everybody, like here on this panel, and people do their best to educate. I really believe that.
Absolutely.
You just said it. You guys teach and you educate every second you can get. The agents in town, Jim's here, what do? We tell these dancers how to audition. We don't just throw them out there. We do our best to give them explicit instructions of what to wear, how to talk to
But
people.
do they listen? Are they listening to you?
Well, then, what if 10% gets in and the rest goes one in or out the other? Right. So it's not like
Same reason.
that everybody in this field of being a professional dancer, choreographer, teacher, agent, manager, we really do our best to educate, and it's just huge. It's just a huge topic. It really is.
I also think the other aspect of it is the fact that regardless of the masses, there are going to be always those individuals that will stand above the rest because they just want it more. They're fighting for it. They will do whatever it takes, and they will make it happen. And then there are those that just expect for something to happen, and that's not how life works. And growing up, artists were always perceived as the struggling artist. We're going to, eat non-fat everything. And if not, then you were forced to live on a top ramen diet because it was 10 packages for $1. You did whatever you needed to do, and you lived however you needed to live, whether it's My cooler was my refrigerator. My lawn chair was my bed at one point. I mean, I mean, everybody's gone through their moments of struggle, but if you want it that badly, you're going to figure out a way to make it happen. I would get in, get cut, walk out, change my outfit, put on a wig, and come back in.
There you go.
I had a blonde, I had a red. Just I'm blonde now, but look, the bottom line is that kids need to learn, the most important thing is that kids need to learn some self-worth, and they need to learn a little bit more about self-value, and they need to understand what it is that they actually bring to the table. And you know, if you're going to pay someone on a SAG principal rate of $700 plus, then that person better be worth $700 plus, which means everything behind them is supporting it. Some people do get lucky, there's no doubt about it, it happens all the time. But the consistency of it, it's a matter of bringing substance to a career, being able to bring a resume, not just a one-hit wonder.
I love it. Thank you. Transitioning a little bit, I mean, you spoke about all these people that are moving here and there's, you know, not a lot of jobs. The big word is branding, being able to identify yourself and set yourself out apart, whether that's a dancer or a choreographer or a director. How many slashes do you put behind your name? When can you put those slashes behind your name? That whole topic of making yourself into a brand. Anybody in the audience?
I think it's really interesting for all of us because we've never had that mindset of branding ourselves. It's like a natural progression. You do what you do. You love what you do what you do, and then it's the natural progression. It's not about jumping ahead. It's about the journey to get there.
That's great.
And nowadays, it's about jumping ahead. It's not even about the journey, and the journey is where you learn. So it's really strange. It's hard for any of us to even imagine jumping somewhere because of a clip you put online and not having been in the room with the people that have, you know, I feel like I've been a sponge my whole life, and everyone I've been around, I've just absorbed it all. And when I get those chances to teach, I embrace it because I get to squeeze that sponge and just share that. And it's simple stuff, but like, you don't get that without the journey. So branding,
I don't even know what that means.
You know,
I don't.
well, you know, I was going to say, you know, when it comes to branding, I think there's a bunch of different ways of being able to look at the idea of branding. You know, because branding is part of social media. It's part of, again, we have to think as much as, you know, bottom line is dance is an old school world. It's been around for centuries. No doubt about it. At one point, it was languages. That's how you spoke, is how you stomped on the ground, or how you beat the drum. It's been around for so long. But now, the way that the world evolves, we do have to be able to keep ourselves within that realm. Just, not to say just to keep ourselves relevant, but to be able to maintain the attention so that we can still keep inserting what we're talking about. Or you could be looking at it as the idea of being able to brand a clothing line. You know, like you look at nappy tabs. Man, those two talk about making it happen. You know, they are such forefront runners in this industry right now, not just as choreographers, but as well as understanding how to be able to brand a clothing line that's, you know, that rocks and kids are digging it. You know, there's nothing wrong with being able to add more to the pot if you know that you have more to offer. And so whether it's, you know, for someone, you know, whether it's clothing line, whether it's the idea of, you know, being able to become a makeup artist, a photographer, a director, a producer. The beauty of dance is that it's one simple seed. But what branches from that, that's you're talking now about the rest of your life, because this is only going to last for so long. I mean, I love to edit. I'm a full-blown editor. I went to New York Film Academy to learn to edit because I paid someone way too much money and I didn't want to pay more. And so they say that necessity is the mother of all invention, so I figured it out how to do it on my own. Been editing for 10 to 15 years and realized, oh my God, I can actually choreograph a scene by the way it's shot. And by the way and the way I can now bring it to life, the way I can give it a pace, the way I can bring a performer's, you know, moment on screen to life. You know, a great editor makes and breaks a performance. So there's so much more to the world of this industry, but we do need to figure out how to brand ourselves over and over and over again. I think it's the idea of being able to reinvent.
Yes. I agree. Yes. I agree.
That's where I stop.
Reinvented. How have you guys continually reinvented yourselves?
Yeah, well, I can talk a little bit about that because I'm always trying to find ways to reinvent myself. You know, you start off as a hip-hop choreographer, and then I'm like, okay, what's going to be the next big thing? So then I start saying, well, I know how to step, and then this movie came up, Stomp the Yard, and then I was up for it, and then I got to do it, so now I was known as a step choreographer. I'm like, okay, what's new? What's next? And I just kept trying to do other things. Right now, there's a new MTV show coming out. Rich and Tone are the executive producers. It's called Beyond Dance. So it's more than just dance. So this was my next opportunity to do something to reinvent myself, where they needed a choreographer that understood the world of percussion, and I used to play percussion when I was in college and in high school, and they also need someone who could twirl a rifle. And I'm like, oh, I could twirl a rifle. This is a new thing. No one knows that I can do that because no one has ever given me that opportunity. But now I know Rich and Tone. I'm going to see if they would give me this opportunity. It took a minute to convince them, but I did, and that's my next reinvention for myself. So now when you see me on MTV, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that Chuck can play the drums and also can twirl a rifle like that. So that's me trying to reinvent myself all the time, over and over and over again.
I believe reinvention is always saying yes. Because when I hear stories, it's always that you almost become unafraid. And I think that once, maybe if it happens that you're dancing and you can't dance no more because maybe you have an injury, or maybe you just want to do something else, I think it's always saying yes. I mean, for me, I was going to go back to school and do something completely different once I had my injury and I couldn't dance anymore. And then I said to myself, you know, what am I going to do? I'm not sure. Well, maybe I can do behind camera stuff. I can see things, and I just kind of exploring. And then I get a phone call from Joffrey Ballet School. They're like, hey, we have a position open as a director. And I said, okay. And then they're like, well, if you don't, you know, just try it. And I was like, just try it. Yes. Okay. Yeah. You know how to do Excel, right? Yeah. No problem. Sure. And I taught myself how to do Excel, so when I got to the job, I could do Excel, you know, and you just say yes. You just keep saying yes. And then I found out, oh, I actually enjoy putting together shows. I love working with choreographers and doing this whole thing, even running through, you know, Santee Alley looking for costumes. Yeah, I mean, I do. I really enjoy the whole process of putting a show together, and who would have thought? You know, I never would have envisioned myself doing something like that. So I think it's just always saying yes and exploring and seeing what else you're good at.
And that's the thing, it's being able to see what else you're good at. I mean, but you'd be amazed, you know, like as a kid, I could not say 2 words to people. I know it's very hard to believe, but I was a kid that hid behind my mother's legs, and you know, I stepped away for dance for 2 years because I got so burnt out, and I couldn't see where my purpose was or where I fit in. And so coming back, it became very clear a good portion of what I wanted to do. And you know, the idea of being able to be a now I can't speak, a motivational speaker was something that just presented itself in front of me without me even realizing. And now I get to, you know, launch a program, you know, called Breaking Barriers, which is specifically just to be able to engage the young dancer because it's a gap that's missing. So that's, I mean, that's the other aspect of it is, you know, part of being able to brand is also being able to brand something that is where, you know, a gap that's missing in the industry. You know, that's what makes, you know, great brands exist.
Right.
Absolutely. Maybe Julie, you can talk a little bit about this. Dancers who then want to become choreographers, or a choreographer who says, I want to start directing. How does that transition happen? And maybe some of you guys can talk about how that happened for you guys.
Well, it's you know, there's just not one path. Mostly it's a convergence of luck, talent, timing, who you know. There's just not a way to do it. But the only thing that you can do is be really prepared. Yeah. And you also have to make a sacrifice. We have 30 years of having dancers say, I want to be an actor. Okay, So this is what you have to do. You have to actually say no to going out on any dance tours because you have to take an acting class and they make you sign up for 12 weeks of 3 times a week. Are you ready to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have done it. I mean, you guys remember Candy Alexander and Carlos. I mean, all these dancers, they're just, there's a lot of dancers who started out as, even Jenna Elfman, you know, and they started out as dancers, but they didn't stay in that space if they really knew what they wanted to do. You can't serve 2 masters. You know, acting, and you also have to be willing to go to the back of the class. So a great dancer who's used to being in front, getting a lot of accolades and a lot of compliments, all of a sudden they're going to have to, they can still take class in between their acting classes and to go to the back of the class and learn an entire new skill set and put themselves out there like that. So few people really, they think they want to do it, but so few people do it. The transition from choreographer to director, that's happening more and more because, face it, just choreography is a very, very difficult living. You have to, you don't have to. Not every choreographer is made to be a director, and some choreographers have made brilliant careers just as a choreographer. But these days, so many of them move into directing, and I just feel for the most part, not all of them are prepared for that transition. And they have to really learn that from somebody good, like your, you know, the people, you know, Chucky's had this, and Liz had this extraordinary experience of being able to work with Kenny. I mean, that's an amazing mentor to have, you know? But so, and then we've got clients now who are producing. I mean, how wonderful is that? So you have to be prepared, you have to study, you have to know what you want, and you just kind of can't let up, and you also have to make sacrifice. That's all I know what
That's great advice.
say about that.
Yeah.
Want to talk about that.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what you said about timing, luck. The reason I became a choreographer, I was a dancer on a commercial when I was 15 years old, and the choreographer didn't show up. And I just said, I can choreograph it. And I was choreographing. I was assisting Marguerite Derricks at the time, and I was like, I've been choreographing since I was little in my, you know, living room and stuff. But I just said, I'll do it. And I ended up doing my first commercial as a choreographer. I called my agent, made sure that they represented me properly, and then it was part of that natural progression of, okay, I'd done one job, and then, you know, you start to get a couple more. But it really is, for me, about, it's always been a trust thing, and I've always manifested good things. I've always just believed and sent out that positive energy without worrying about what's coming next, but just trusting the process, because the process has always been good for me. And it is about luck. It's about the people you meet along the way, and getting to work with Kenny on a film and having that good relationship, because you know, working with people, really getting to know how people work and paying attention to the different personalities and knowing how to work with them, and then getting to work with them again, and getting to work with them again, and learning the process through those relationships, watching Kenny direct films. I mean, 5 films together, and watched him just sit there and watch how it works. And I go, oh my gosh, I could actually do this. I never knew what a director did until I experienced really being in that world and going to dinner with Kenny after shoots and setting up the shot list for the next day. And I was like, so this is how it works. Like, it's not about, for me, it wasn't about going to school. For me, it was jumping right into the fire and living it. That's where I learned the most.
I just recently, it's been weird for me because I've known that I've wanted to direct for maybe like for the past 7 years. Like that's what I really wanted to do, and I'm working on my the Step Up 5000 will be that will be my 24th film that I've completed, and so I'm used to, you know, showing up to set, and I know the grind of the director. Worked with Adam Shankman, who did Hairspray, and then I was fortunate enough to meet Craig Zadan and Neil Marin, who did Footloose, the remake of Footloose, and I was brought on with Craig Brewer. He was the director, and there would be times where we'd do dance sequences, and he'd be like, Jamal, go do the shot list tonight. And I'm like, what do you mean? That doesn't mean dance steps. What does that mean? And he said, go do it. And I'm like, oh, what does that mean? You know, so I'm going back and I'm calling everybody. I'm like, Adam, what, you know, I'm lucky that I have these people that I've developed these relationships with to be like, what do I do? And they're like, this is what you do. You know, you know what you're doing. You know where to place the camera. You know what the dance is and all this kind of stuff. So I was lucky and fortunate to have these relationships for people to bring me up. But a lot of times what I've realized is that in this business, you know, people can only see you as one thing, right? So, and unfortunately for all of us, that, you know, if you're an actor, you're just an actor, and you can't be a singer, a pop singer, because you're just an actress, and there's no possible way you could do that. Or if you're a dancer, you can't be an actress or an actor, you know? So people can only see you for what you do. So sometimes you have to step outside and prove yourself, and so that's what, and so I was expecting, you know, hey, I've done all these step-up movies, maybe they'll slide me one. That hasn't been the case. So what I decided to do was to take it into my control, and I went down to Atlanta, and there's a dance style called bucking, and these boys down in the South are doing it, and I'm like, I would love to do a documentary with you guys. And so we went and I shot a sizzle, and I came back and I sold it to World of Wonder production company, and now I'm directing my own documentary. So I'm very excited, but you know, I didn't wait for people to give it to me, because I felt like I had to go do it myself. Even to prove it to myself sometimes, I think that I did it. You know, just to say, Jamal, you could do this. You know, you've done a lot of them, and you know what this is about. So I do say, you know, you have to believe in yourself, and you can't wait for anybody to give you anything. You just kind of have to go out and make it happen.
And I think that is one of those things, because I definitely have to piggyback off of these two guys, because half of my career came from these two guys. I started with him when I was 17 years old in Atlanta. My first audition is on tape. He made me watch it every now and then. I went down and talk about a flame of audition. But I think that when the transition, for me, is one of those things that when your window opens, you have to be prepared to jump through it, because you never know when that window's going to open up again. And for me, coming from dancing, I had danced for everybody I wanted to dance for. I did these commercials, I did these movies, and I had got to a place where I was like, okay, this is becoming a little annoyed. Not everything's bothering me. I get on set, I'm like, working with these artists with all these attitudes, I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. I'm not gonna be able to do it tomorrow. I need something else in my life. So he's like, come on, you can work with me, assist me. And I've always been great at dancing, and acting is always what I wanted to do. So then I started assisting this guy, and we did all these movies. We got jokes and history and movies, and then it's just, and now it's so funny that our time, he's going into, we got plenty of jokes. We got jokes. You wanna hear some good stories? Me and this guy right here got stories. So it's just funny that now that he's transitioning into directing, and my transition to acting it's almost like we're shifted up. Like, we still work together, and both of us still do individual choreography. I still work with him on choreography. I'm always gonna work with him, but it's just, I feel like I'm in a great place because our transition is happening at the same time. You know what I mean? I have somebody that, when I'm going through it, I'm like, no one wants to see me as nothing else. They just want me to go back there and dance. I'm trying to act, and when they say, we need an actor here, Drake, can you do this? Absolutely. I'm going to deliver those lines better than the actor that you already hired. Watch this. I'm always ready. You know what I mean? It's like, when that window open, I'm going to make sure that I'm there to jump through it.
That's passion right there.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
You can hear it.
You don't want me to be your stand-in, because I'm going to deliver whatever. I am not your stand-in, because you be like, nope.
And you know what I hear from all these amazing people is confidence. And I think, yeah, the belief in yourself. And I think it's kind of strange, but I think that's another thing missing in the next generation coming up. A lot of them don't even want to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's very strange. I'll take a selfie, but to look in the mirror, and really evaluate what they're doing, and have the confidence to show what they're doing. A lot of them, even in class, they'll stand in the back, and none of them want to come forward. And I remember everybody trying to fight to get to the front, you know, and I don't understand where that's coming from.
I think because on Instagram you can filter it. You can't filter the live. You can filter the Instagram and filter everything.
It's just, you know what, it was always a challenge having some sense of self-worth growing up, I think, at any generation. This particular generation is just a lot more challenged, mainly because there just is not enough support, and not because people don't want to. I think people have forgotten about it and forgotten the value of what it is to be able to tell someone, you know what, you have something really great. Do you realize that? You know what, come with me. Let me show you something in the mirror. I want you to do this. Do you see that? Do you see how good you are? People are not stopping these kids to help themselves appreciate what it is that they have to offer, which is why so many of them cower. And all you could think of is like, you know, this is the beauty, I think this is one of the most beautiful things about dance, is the fact that dance, as art is a reflection of life. And sometimes when I see a dancer pull themselves in the back of the room, all I can think was like, wow, you're pulling yourself to the back of your life. You've got to be able to step forward into your life, and you have to be willing to take the risk, because if not, then you're gonna stay paralyzed. You're gonna stay in a state of fearfulness, and that's just gonna get you absolutely nowhere. You have to be willing to jump into the fire, feel the burn, and be okay. If you can get used to being uncomfortable all the time, I always keep saying, you gotta get comfortable with being uncomfortable. How uncomfortable is it every time that a director tells you, you know what, you need to change the choreography right now, you have 2 minutes, go. You know? you know, it's literally, it's minutes, it's, you know, somebody's going, okay, you know what, now you're gonna be wearing, you know, this cute little, you know, tube top, and meanwhile you're looking at yourself going, I don't like this. You just got to learn to become comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable, and you'll be amazed at then what transpires and what manifests in front of you, because then you start to see more for yourself than you ever have, and that's what these kids need. That's what that's what people need, period. We all need it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're going to take some questions from the audience. So these are directed to a few of you specifically. This was for Jamal and Draco. What do you guys look for, or how do you find an assistant choreographer? Is that sometimes an open position, or?
Okay. Now, the funny part about he and I is that Draco is, we've become best friends. Like literally, you know, so I feel like I'm really lucky to have him as my assistant, because really as a choreographer, the fact that I know that Draco is going to have my back no matter what brings me so much comfort in every job that I do, because I know that if something were to go wrong and I needed to jump over to the other set to help somebody do this, I know Draco has my back, and he's going to handle the dancers the way I would want to handle the dancers, and he knows me very well. So the assistant part is very personal to me, just because I don't want just somebody that I don't know treating my dancers any kind of way. You know what I mean? And so I have a big thing about that. But at the same time, you know, I know that I want to give other people opportunities to come in and learn, you know. So I've been battling with myself, like, Jamal, just go on social media and say, hey, does anybody want to intern? Does anybody, because I want to give people opportunities. But sometimes, you know, it's like, it's a feel for me. It's like I have to feel the person, and I want to make sure that they're good people. And so I want to go through a process of getting to know them. So I've been challenged with that. I really have. I want to open the opportunity, but I'm a little afraid to bring somebody into what we have and possibly mess it up with a vibe or a negative space that I don't like.
I think it's because it's more than just a step. You step with these people all day, every day, and you got to know if they're not there, okay, you got an attitude today, okay. You have to learn to move it on and still get the job done. And I think that there's a lot of people with a lot of steps who got amazing steps, but sometimes they're not the most people person. And we you don't get along with everybody else. Your steps are amazing, but something's a little weird. You just have to, you have to be comfortable with who you are. Like, especially with us, we like to have fun. We always laughing. We have a good time. There's always going to be a joke. You can't be too serious. Like, relax. Like.
Yeah, we're in a business where it's so serious and so stressful that we like to create an environment for dancers and for everybody that we work with to be able to come in and just do their talent, just give us their talent, because I think there's so much pressure of, you have to be skinny, you have to be this, you have to be that. I'm like, okay, We got past the door. Everybody's in the room. Let's love each other. Let's hold each other tight. I got your back. You got my back. Now let's shoot it. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of environment that we like to have. And so that's why I'm like really kind of picky on who I let come in.
That's great. When we were talking to Debbie earlier, we were talking about what she looks for in a dancer. Does anybody want to talk a little bit, like when you're casting, what specifically you might be looking for? It was pretty broad for her. She said it was, a shining light.
Obviously you are looking for someone that grabs your attention. When you have those massive calls, right? And there is, 500, 600, and you don't want to miss out on the opportunity of finding somebody new that has that fresh blood, that's got that extra zing. So I'm not a fan of typecasting, because I actually do want to see that rare one nugget that may change the whole game. And so, but at times it's not hard, I'll be honest, because a lot of dancers, for one, really lack pickup skills. And in our environment, if you can't pick up at the speed of light, you're not usable, because it's time wasted that I have to hold your hand, that I have to babysit you. So I need to know that you can pick up. I need to know that you're adaptable. I need to know that you can say yes. And if not yes, I will figure it out. And once I give you that count of 8, you're going to be in that mirror for an hour until you get it right. That way, when I come back, I'm not having to worry about you. Like, you want dancers that you can trust, but at the same time, you want those dancers that are going to be you can't not watch you. I mean, the whole point of being a dancer is to be seen. And it's amazing how many dancers hide. That's why in an audition, it's not hard. It's really easy to separate the world real quick, because they may stand out there, they may look hot in their little outfit, but the heat goes away the minute they start moving. You're like, wow, you don't even find 5, 6, 7, 8. How about a downbeat,
Where's that pocket?
Find some. And then, and then of course, when it comes into their freestyle, this is where I find that it's really interesting, because the freestyle has become really, I guess there's a sense of conformity. There's a real safeness, although there's interesting movement, but everybody's moving so interestingly that nobody stands out. So, like the idea of being able to have like an extra thing. Like sometimes you'll hire a dancer because they're throwing, Celtic Irish dancing in the most interesting way in a hip hop audition. Like you have no idea like what may actually draw your attention to it. But definitely, I mean, it's that thing. You're either born with it or you're not.
I booked This Is It on my freestyle from what I've heard from everybody that was there watching the audition behind the table. I don't do tricks. I don't tumble, I don't break, I don't do any of the tricks. So when it came time for that moment after the combo where we all had to freestyle and throw it out there, I had to go a different route, and I had to think about story versus steps. So I created a story for myself. I saw 50,000 people. I saw the crowd, and I went to the front of the stage, and I was just headbanging. I was trying to clap and get everybody to clap along with me, seeing people and saying, "Come on," and clapping to the beat, just clapping. And apparently Michael said, "That's rock and roll. He's like Slash." This is what I've heard. So in the meantime, there's like all these fireworks all around. It's not about steps sometimes. It's about creating a story in your head, or just pure energy and passion and doing more than just the steps. And then people that go to auditions need to understand, dancers that audition need to understand that the people behind the table want you to do well. Yes. I myself get nervous. I'm nervous sitting here in front of Tina Landon. But it's amazing. There are people behind the table want you to do well. They root for you. So as soon as you get nervous, and we can sense that it's uncomfortable for us, we want you to have fun. We want to see, we're enjoying it as much as we hope you are. So if you just go into an audition with that mentality, without getting nervous, just going, okay, they want me to do well. They want us to look good. All of a sudden, yeah, we want to go home.
Well,
on
that note.
It helps. It helps your audition, for sure.
I think on my side, the ballet, I see more of the ballet auditions. And people have studied since they were 5 years old most of the time. Some of the men start a little later sometimes. But seeing all the ballerinas in rows and rows, they start to blend a little bit. And to see their technique, I can look at them technically, I can, evaluate them. But the biggest thing is performance. And when I'm casting or when I'm auditioning, I want to see somebody who's going to bring it. And in the ballet world. So there has to be something going on here. And a lot of dancers don't use the face. They just use the body. And so I don't see anything happening here. Even if they're technically great, I really want to see the performance ability right from the start. See what they're offering. And a lot of them don't even look at you. They're scared to look at you. And the person who looks at me, who smiles, I go, wow. Wow, I'll notice a smile over a développé anytime. Everybody's doing développé. Everybody's trying to get their leg up there. But it's the one that goes and opens up and shows me what they have. That's what I look for.
Awesome. I love it. You guys were actually out of time. We could talk about all this stuff for hours and hours. You guys have been absolutely fantastic and left so much knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here.
Can I just say one thing? Tina, the reason why I moved here was because of you. Thank you for inspiring me.
Tina Landon.
Thank you. Seriously.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you guys for giving us your time. We really appreciate it.